Okay, let's see if we can get a 15-minute game this morning. What title players are on while we're waiting? Have a look. Observe title player game. Anyone playing? Machine gun is an IM. Can observe. So he's black, playing. Is that a bullet game? Looks like a bullet game. Oh, about Queen E7. Yeah. Why is his rating only 2032 on bullet? Actually, he had knight D3 check there as his recent jug. Okay. It seems to be material up. Actually, let's just rewind that. Yeah, he could play knight D3. I don't know if that's helpful there. Rook D4 is now threatened for knight. No, not quite. Knight F3 here could be handy. Right, here's the exchange down. We got a game. Okay, we got a game. Let's stop observing that. Okay, we're gonna have a. Okay, hopefully a fun game. Maybe I can try Nimzo-Indian. Actually, I haven't played that much on the 15-minute time control. After Aaron Nimzovic. So Dave 1619. Fairly consistent ratings. I'm going to take the double pawns here for double pawns. Maybe C5, just try and close up the position now, try and make these knights work. It's a classic Nimzo-Indian with A3. Like wasting a bit of time there, perhaps. B6 or D6. Queen E7 maybe. Queen E7 I think, and then D6. That will avoid D takes C being an issue after D6, so I can recapture with the D pawn to keep the restraint going on against the double pawns. On the other hand, also, I don't know if this was okay, let's go for it. So knight C6 and E5, just to try and make sure I get a fair share of the centre as well as this restraining strategy. That would also release this bishop. I get to play E5. And also it's got a perk now of threatening E4. So this bishop's a bit hemmed in at the moment. Dynamically, white could consider sacking a pawn later. Okay. Can I close up the position if he plays for D5? Maybe knight A5 and aim for the C4, B6, bishop A6. I'm good we get a different strategy here than the King's-Indian. If this pulls off, this is quite nice to show Nimzo-Indian. A lot of GMs are avoiding Nimzo-Indian. They don't want all this restraint going on double pawns. That's why Queen's-Indian is so popular. It's an established kind of weapon. This bishop's not usually that good. But here, I mean, you might think, well, what about E4? Well, that would sack a pawn actually. I'm not sure I'd take it here. I'd just maybe castle and play H6. I want to play B6, bishop A6. And that also introduces tactics like knight D5 potentially when the queen's not on D5, as well as that, there's that potentially pinning on that diagonal, as well as putting pressure on C4. So strategically, it's looking a bit dicey for white here already. My knight's kind of in an ideal spot against liberation. Now here, this sort of pinning tactics could be introduced after bishop A6 with knight D5 on the cards. So I think this is looking unpleasant. Mind you, bishop A4, I've just allowed bishop A4. Naughty. There was no need to allow bishop A4. Oh dear, and then he's got bishop B5, so I've messed this up a bit. Okay. Now if I castle, there is bishop G5 here. So I'm wondering to play this anyway. Just invite bishop a4, maybe king d8. Even if bishop b5 maybe takes, and I've still got a potentially good knight. Is that convincing? I'm not sure anymore. Okay. King over here. I'll put it on, yeah, I'll put it on d8. Maybe king c7. Aim for a mighty knight on c4. If he plays bishop b5, okay, and then maybe h6. Knight h4, g6. Okay, so this knight hopefully is going to be good one day. For the moment, actually, now that there's a pawn on b5, of course there's a classic Nimzo game with a6, trying to tear open some lines. So just king c7, a6 even as a pawn sack potentially, then doubling behind that. Mind you, there's bishop b2. Oh dear, that knight b3 to d4 to exposure on this. If he takes, got exposure on e4. Okay. I think I need some precision before messing up this position, but a6 looks good if I do get another move, because then ab and I'll be supporting the knight with the rook on a8. So I think I need to slow down here. Alright, so I think a6 is possible here. h3 doesn't do much. Okay, so I can work on the a file anyway. It's better the king here, I think, because here it would have been disconnecting the rooks, and g6, say knight h4, g6. I don't know, maybe king g7, I don't know. Maybe castles and f4 there with knight on h4. You can imagine the king might be more of a target on f8 than just crawling to c7. So that might not have been such a bad decision. So all I'm aiming for here, peel open the a file, a3 is the target. Double rooks behind that. Looks quite modest actually, the goal here, but I think it could be dangerous for white. Let's imagine, okay, we can take now here. Just double up rooks on that semi-open a file. White's got no semi-open file to work with. Well, knight d2 to c4 could be on the cards. I might want to try and provoke a4 at some point with queen d7. Or maybe king b7, c4, then knight d7 to c5. That will put pressure as well on white, but that weakens b6. There might be bishop e3. It's another plan. Okay, so say this knight's coming off. Okay, what about g5 and g4 at some point as well? For the moment, let's put the king here. So I'll wait for knight c4, maybe double and play rook a4. That'll be on e4. That would have been nice to double there. Another inaccuracy. I think I should wake up here and slow down. Because if rook a8 there, then knight c4 takes. I had rook a4. Now white's got the possibility of playing a4 after knight c4 takes rook a8, a4, supported by the queen and rook. That's a shame. Play it anyway. Okay. Knight e8 to c7. Alright, he's allowing rook a4. That seems to be a very nice move. Keeping the bishop tied down by a pawn. Maybe knight h5 is also pretty nice. Potentially, or queen d7. Or knight h5 and f5, just trying to undermine the centre at some point. But Queen D7 might have a threat later of Rook A5. Queen D7 or Queen D7 here, just to start tying some pieces down to these pawns. It's not enough to have weak pawns, but some pieces if they're tied down. So that should be better. But where can this knight actually go now? I suppose I can move to C7 and then play F5 later to try and undermine E4. If it takes Queen F5, this pawn will be a bit weaker later. This rook will have access to the king side. So this plan to get a knight to C7 might be quite good. Okay. I don't know, the opponent might be playing, I don't know, maybe I'm not sort of thinking in the opponent's time. The opponent's also playing quite quickly here. 50% of time used so far. Okay, so knight C7 and F5. Knight C7, F5 would put pressure on E4. Also got Rook A5 on the card to try and nab the B5 pawn. It's disconnected from the pawn chain. But that might be better after. But as soon as, I don't know, F4 is always an option for white. Try and open that F file, that could spell some danger. I'd really want to be able to take and have the F file blocked with F6 to provide granite to the rook on the F file. So perhaps knight C7 and F5 is not the best because of F4s. Mind you, knight on C7 is kind of defensive as well for the 7th rank. So does it matter if white gets to play F4? And there's this diagonal as well for that queen. Mind you, if ever takes on the rook. So if F4, I think that's really undermining F4 actually, because then takes that bishop's also getting into scope the rook on the F file. So do I need this second front to play F5? Maybe just Rook A5. Counter attacks on the rook. Maybe this one's used, so this one's not a tactical liability. In fact, Rook D4 here, just to gain a tempo. Queen goes back. There might be C4 to disconnect. Bishop E3. There's a potential for getting two connected pass pawns there. After knight takes B5. In fact, this Rook D4 does seem tempting. Rook A5. So Rook A5. There's no A4 just yet. Bishop A3 actually loosens A3 anyway. Bishop E3. So there's no need to play with F5 at the moment. Just on this B pawn seems enough. B pawn torture. Queen E2, Rook A5. Bishop E3, exchange that possibility. Okay. There's no A4 here. Bishop E3, I can just take. Queen A4 though. He's not on A6, but my queen would be pinned. But it's check. That would be check for the bishops on E3. So that's fine as well. It's down to the last 5 minutes now. Yeah, I have played this too quickly. There was some inaccuracies there so far. But on the other hand, it's time, if I want to play a more accurate move, I can invest more time now with 12 minutes rather than say 2 minutes. So okay, so about this knight versus the bishop and this weak pawn in particular. So say F4, I think F6, say Fe, D takes, maybe D6 is liberating, but it's only the queen. The other pieces will still be deprived, the rooks will be deprived of the F file with a pawn on F6. It should be okay. So Nimzo-Indian. Right, rook takes b5. There's no queen a4 anyway, the rook's on it. So I can take that if I want, or I can try and maintain positional torture. I think it might be time to grab that, and then I can get queen a4 in, maybe even sacrifice the exchange on d4 if I don't want to move that rook. So I can take here, and do I want to sack the exchange? There's lots of passed pawns there. If I get another pawn there, there's two passed pawns there. So queen b5 might be a delicious thing to do. I'm tempted. There's rook b2, though. On to queen b5, queen a5. There's no need, though, is there? Unless this is a serious threat on b6. But rook here to here, if I want to defend that, or even b5. There's no bishop c5. Maybe just rook a6 is a safer way, and queen a4, keeping on the light squares away from the dark square bishop, putting a rook on a6 and queen on a4. Pressure on a3 again, then b5 maybe. So rook, queen a4, b5. Unless there's any bishop c5 or rude interruption, that looks like, or queen a4 here, looks perfectly safe, controlling the a file. So b5, also queen a1, of course. Queen a1 might fail tactically to rook b6. He's resigned here anyway, so yeah, that made a change. Nimzo-Indian away from the KingsCrusher. So, but yeah, this allowing the check might have been a bit controversial. This might have been controversial, just rook a8, to be able to play rook a4. Here white didn't play a4, which could have been quite handy. So the b5 pawn was disconnected in this game. Dropped that, and end of game. Comments or questions on YouTube. Thanks so much.